Tonya Hofmann's fabulous. Tonya Hofmann's fabulous. Tonya Hofmann's fabulous, fabulous TV show. Tonya.
Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh, you're going to be in for such a treat today. Thank you for joining us. This is the Tonya Hofmann TV show. Fabulous TV show, of course, because I have fabulous guests like my guest today, LaTonya, Dr. LaTonya Woodson. So don't you love it? We almost have the same name. We're almost just twins. How are you doing, LaTonya?
I am fabulous. Thank you.
Nice. So I'm glad that you're all back today because, again, it's a whole amazing information showcasing that real people can do real change for the world, that we can go out and make a difference. And guess what? If we can do it, that means you can do it. And there is nothing more exciting for me, especially, than able to change somebody's life. So I'm hoping that someone listening today will go, I'm ready. I don't want you to say I'm not ready anymore, because that is the thing that irritates me the most. Just be ready. Just do it. Never say no. Just say yes, yes, yes. Let's have fun. Let's meet people. You know, that's what it's all about. So now, okay, so I'm going to introduce the Dr. LaTonya because I've been so impressed. She is a leadership coach. She's the CEO of the Company Doctor. Don't you love that title? And she's an incredible author and speaker. So how are you doing today?
Again, I'm fabulous. It's
Yay!
a wonderful day, yes.
So tell us about, how did you change your world?
Well, I'll have to take you back to Tuesday, January 14th, 2014. And, some would describe it as those two things in a day, the best day and the worst day of my life. I was celebrating my 43rd birthday. And so, when you have a birthday, you're all excited. And I really was excited, planning for my day and, planning for a party. It was also almost a month from when I graduated with my doctorate degree. So my sister and I were planning graduation events, really, really having a wonderful, and I call it fabulous, birthday. And about 2 hours into my fabulous birthday, I got a call. And that call was from the doctor's office. And the lady on the other line said, "Are you sitting down?" She asked me, "Are you sitting down?" I said, "Well, yes, I am." And she says, "Well, I'm sorry I have to tell you this, but you definitely, your results came back. You definitely have cancer, breast cancer." And so at that moment, my world was turned upside down, literally. So I went from having that fabulous, wonderful day to now thinking, seriously, is this my death call? And, immediately I broke down. And I did. I had a pity party for about a full day. It was the same day I was going to get my new picture done for my driver's license. And, everything had changed. And after I had that moment for several hours for the rest of that day, I decided that I was going to take charge, that I was going to beat that cancer, and I was going to live no matter what. And that's what I was determined to do. So that's when my world was turned. And I really said, whatever it was that I was planning for the last 10, 12 years, be it expanding my business, writing another book, anything, I said I was going to do. And so that, to me, was my change, literally.
It's so interesting because I had gone through thyroid cancer and I was just turning 30. And so as a 29-year-old, it was a shock. You're like, no, I am too young. What is this C word coming up? Mm-hmm. It didn't even make sense to me. I'm like, what? This is something that old people get.
Yeah.
People my age now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a death wish. You know, that's what we used to think for sure. Hmm.
Yes. Well, it's great, and you're feeling good and everything, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
Did you find that, because for me, I really didn't have much of kind of that slap in the face like you probably had. Mine was a aha that the people around me were having a more difficult time than I was, because I just was like, well, I'm going to get over it. This isn't going to stop me. But everyone else seemed like they were having a really challenge. Did you find something like that happen to you?
I did. And you know what was interesting? Again, you know, you go through the emotions when you hear news like that for the first time. And I did. I got on the phone. I called my manager. I called my mother. I called a lot of family and friends who, you know, their immediate reactions were, oh, you know, my mom is sobbing on the phone. She had to take a break while she was at work. My manager told me, you know, subsequently she told me she had to leave her meeting that she was in when she got the call, and she had to take a moment to herself to really think things through. And so the people that I informed about what was going on, that I let inside my world to this very private moment, really took it hard. And again, thinking back on myself, and I wanted not to be selfish about this. That's why my own sadness and, you know, my crying and my sadness, that was just a moment in time, just a moment, because I didn't want people to feel sorry for me. And for those that were going through, there were friends of mine who were going through worse conditions of breast cancer than I was. And so I felt, after, you know, praying and really thinking it through, that it was my call, my testimony that I could give that could encourage someone else. And that's what I set out to do. It was no longer about me. I just had to go through it. That's what I looked at it as. I had to go through it in order to have the testimony to share with someone else who was going through far worse than I was. And there were people that I knew very close, that were going through. Mm-hmm.
Well, and for when I went through the cancer, my daughter was only a year and a half old. So of course she didn't understand what was going on with mommy and why mommy was sick and why mommy had to go to the hospital for a week and these things.
Yep.
And all I could think of is, well, it makes no sense. I've got this whole life that I'm still supposed to share with her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm going to get all emotional. So let's move on from that point.
Yeah.
So, when I look back, I also realized that some people stepped up and was a part of my life, and other people fell back. And it was a very interesting moment for me because my father, my biological father, suddenly was in the picture. And this is I love him, but he just hasn't been much a part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And him and my stepmother were there, and how can we help? And I was like, who are you, you crazy people? I haven't even seen you my whole life. And then you're here. And then my mother and my sister, who I'm so incredibly close to, disappeared. They rarely talked to me. They rarely, they didn't want to talk about it. And I realized that they just could not handle the thought that something might happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I hear it from a lot of people that there's just people that just can't handle it. So their kind of emotion is just to disappear.
Yeah.
And I've forgiven them, obviously, because that's just who they are. And, yes, I really needed them to be there, but when someone can't handle it, they just can't handle it.
I mean, that's big news when you tell someone you have this sickness, this illness, and what we know, or what little we know about a lot of these different illnesses. It really takes people on a whole new level, and you'll find that experience.
And I want to encourage everyone out there too, if you find somebody that's going through something. My stepmother went through breast cancer last year, and she's all healthy now and everything. But when she was going through that process, especially the early stages when she was really not feeling good and everything, I sent her a letter, and it was just a letter between her and me. And I told her and I thanked her for being my stepmother and for marrying my father. And all these years, she felt like she was the outsider, all of these emotions. And I wanted just to tell her thank you. And she said out of her whole experience, that was the moment that she took away from her whole experience. But I didn't want something to happen to her without saying something.
Yeah. That simple kindness, that simple gesture. I had people that gave me prayer receptions and lunches and cards. I mean, and like you talk about people that stepped away and then people that came forth, there were people that I hadn't talked to in years that when they learned about it, I had guests coming to my house almost every day for breakfast and lunch, bringing me food, and my family, different types of food so that I wouldn't have to cook. And you'll find that, but it's those simple things, the letter, even the phone call. I got a card from one of my coworkers who's way on the other side of the country, and she sent me a card. And when I met up with her for a trip that we did, she handed me a book, and it was a book about laughter. And, you just, those little bitty things you appreciate from people, and some of those things you don't expect to happen. They come from, these different places, and you just appreciate them. And that was a kind gesture that you did, definitely.
Right. Yeah. So, reach out and touch, be there for people. And it doesn't have to be, in a huge way. And I think that's what people are like, well, I don't know how to help that person. Yeah, just a book of, some flowers, something silly, an email even, just whatever. It makes a huge difference.
And, I don't know about you, Tonya, but when you're going through, sometimes when we're the ones who are going through something, it's hard for us to ask. And that's what I was penalized for with a lot of family and friends. They know me. They know that I won't necessarily ask for them to do something. And they really wanted to know, how can I help? And you don't want to put anybody out. You don't want to, make it uncomfortable for someone. But when they ask, tell them if there's something you're needing. I mean, there were times when I wasn't physically able to go get my kids from school. I had neighbors, I had friends who took the offer to go get my children from school. It was such a help. But if I didn't specifically say what I needed, they would never know. And then I would be, either my kids would still be at school late for someone to come get them, or I would really injure myself by going out and stepping out trying to go get them. So yes.
Most people really love helping, you know.
Yeah.
And I realize now that I denied some people the opportunity to help me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, always take those opportunities to allow people to be a part of your life,
Absolutely.
So I know you're so amazing. You've got so much information that you really generously give people and help people with. So how do you change the world? What do you do? What kind of tips can you give us today?
Well, as I went through that ordeal, and then as I've gone through several other major episodes in my life, there are 4 strategies that I have lived by that have proven time and time again. And it was no different than this last time, the most recent event in my life. And those 4 strategies are very, very simple. And the first one is faith. The second one is fortitude. The third one is family and friends. And then the fourth one, I'll have to explain to you, it's 2 fundamental questions. So they're all, things that I go by, and I call them my 4F strategies. So the first one is faith. And of course, it's my foundation. And I just believe that no matter who you worship, who you honor, that there has to be some level of faith that gets you through. It's the foundation. And I found my faith carried me through. It was my foundation. If I didn't have the faith, if I didn't, pray and hope and really meditate, I couldn't do some of the other things. I couldn't let the people into my life. I couldn't go about my business and supporting my family, because life still goes on when you go through these things. And so faith was huge for me. After that, it's fortitude. And faith gives you a little of that. Fortitude simply isn't it. And sometimes people go, what is fortitude? It's kind of hard to describe. But really, it's that courage. having the mindset and determination that you are going to make it, that you're going to have the strength, that mental capacity, you're going to make it and endure. And I had to find that inner being, that inner LaTonya, that spirit that I've always had when I encourage others. I had to encourage myself. And so, yes, I had my faith in God and, who's my supreme being, but then also that inner faith that comes, that spirit of fortitude, knowing that, you know what, when I said I was going to kick cancer, when I said I was going to beat this thing, I had to keep encouraging myself daily. And then so the third one is family and friends. And we talked about this just a minute ago with, receiving the help, asking for help, being specific in what your needs are. I was surrounded by family, friends, members of my church, members of my sorority, the different areas of my life. People were just coming together. It did a wonderful thing because in some of those circles, there were people that were creating new networks and friendships that hadn't been there before. And now there's some events that I'm going to as a result of that first prayer meeting, the first visual, whatever you want to call it, from meeting people. And now we have socials, happy hour on Friday, or hey, girl group, we're going over here to this thing. It builds those networks. So family, definitely, they're your support. And I know you can attest to this, Tonya, as well. Family is important. And I got the support from my husband, my two children, who were fabulous during that time, because I did spend some time in the hospital and I was at home for several weeks where I couldn't move. And my children, my husband, and those neighbors, just everyone who came together for a common purpose to help me. And it helped me see that there's so much good. And like you mentioned before, people do want to help. Right. And then finally, my final strategy, I mentioned this, the 2 questions that I always ask. And you talk about changing the world, because like I mentioned before about me beating this cancer and surviving and living, it gave me a whole new outlook. To, whereas I used to, if someone said, can you join me for this event, or can you support me on this, or whatever the case was, there were a lot of no's back then. And sometimes no's are good. You don't want to overexert yourself. But I was saying no to the point where I almost looked back and I said, God, I didn't have a life. It was just going home. And that's no way to live when you don't have a balanced life. And so I had to commit really to a balanced life. And I'm telling you, the 2 questions that I asked myself, the first one, and you have to ask these 2 questions in this order, and it has to be these 2 questions. And I can't take credit for this because it was my professor years ago who taught us this in school, but I've held on to it dearly. First question is, where am I going? So for you that, you're listening, I've had an experience, you're thinking to yourself, I've had an experience, I've had this episode in my life, what do I do now? And I would encourage you, look back and say, where am I going? For me, it was expanding my business. It was, I want to write another book. For me, it was helping my sister to expand her business. Whatever area it is for you, ask yourself, where am I going? The second fundamental question is, who's going with me? Because as you know, the journey is yours. Don't take a path that it's somebody else's directing. When you ask the question, where am I going? That means this is your journey, your direction, your life. You're charting your own course. And when you ask the second question, who's going with me? Who's going to join me in going along? Who's going to support me? Who's not going to derail me? Who's going to, encourage me along the way? Who's going to be my cheerleader? And, you'll lose some people along the way as you go through and you take these journeys. But those who stick with you, those are the ones who are meant to be there and support you. And so for anyone who's trying to start that business, write that book, take a trip, a life, something you've planned for a long, long time and you just haven't made the move. That's my encouragement to you. Where are you going? And then who's going with you? Just in that order, not the other way around.
I
If you
love
switch it, if you switch it, who's going with me? You could be off somewhere, and you're intending to go this way, and so.
Well, you end up with someone else's plan and not your own.
Exactly. So those have been my tried and true tips for living, and certainly when we go through these devastating moments in our lives, they definitely help.
That's great. It's so interesting because most people want to, the whole work-life balance, and it's got to be all one thing or nothing, and because they get so focused. And to me, it almost does, a disservice to the children, if you've got children, is to eliminate one or the other. So to me, it's about combining everything that you do to show them that life is about multi-purposing and multi-activities instead of just one thing. I meet people that have been worked at the post office for 30 years or a secretary for, 35 years or something. I'm like, how do you do that?
I'll tell you something about that. I used to say that, and that is so true. Some people do find benefits in being long-term. Someone retirement, as you know, it's taken so many different twists and turns that people that have had the longevity, probably have some really good retirements right now. But I agree with you. Even if you are in the same physical location and you may be, doing some of the same work, why not learn a new skill to help you do the job better? Or read a book that talks about, what some of the things are you can improve the productivity in your area. So you can keep doing it if that's what you want to do. For instance, I know some tellers that have been tellers at banks for 30 and 40 years. They get a joy out of meeting new people. But I wonder, how do you do this day in and day out every day for 30 years? And again, one person told me, the retirement looks good. But the other thing is they keep learning, their training classes that they can go through and, self-improvement.
It's about expanding, because what I see, especially because I do a lot of presentations and speaking to job clubs and people that are looking for jobs. And usually they're having a hard time finding something because they didn't expand. They didn't expand their minds. They were just doing the same job every single day and wasn't looking at anything else.
Right.
So even for those that are out there that, you want to be an expert in a certain field, which is great, but don't forget, it's always about learning and connecting and continuing the collaborations that can lead to who knows how many fabulous things.
Oh, right. You never know if, layoffs occurred. We've had a lot of those with some big name industries in the past. So you want to always be prepared. And just like you said, we used to say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Same thing with knowledge,
Yes.
Work on new skills and find out what some of your other passions are even. Yeah.
Exactly. And there are some things that, okay, you're not the expert at, but you really should understand at least how it works,
Yeah.
I'm not an expert at, filing, but I'm at least know how it works.
Exactly. You may need that skill pretty soon.
Exactly. Well, it's such a pleasure having you on. So tell us, you were going to give away something amazing today. What is that?
Well, if you go to my website, and actually, I'm going to give you my email address. And if you send me an email and you include somewhere in your email, whether it's the subject or the body of the email, the Tonya Hofmann Show, you will receive a complimentary 30-minute consultation from yours truly, the company doctor. And also, you can be entered for a $50 credit towards one of my upcoming workshops. And that's presented by the company doctor. And I'll give you my email address. It is LaTonya, and that's spelled LaTonya, Woodson, WOODSON, at sbcglobal.net. LaTonya.Woodson at sbcglobal.net. So I look forward to receiving your emails, and also I look forward to seeing and hearing from you guys in the near future.
Nice. And remember, all of our guests, if you're just listening and it's like been 5 months since, you know, that actually post, still reach out. They're willing to have this go on forever. This is an evergreen product.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the credit, the credit and the consultation, they're good for a year from whenever you send the email. Just let me know. I'm just looking forward to meeting so many new people, and this has been fabulous. Thank you.
Yay. So everyone, make sure that you take advantage of LaTonya's amazing offer, and really all of our guests. You know, why not? It's free. I'm always like, why wouldn't you take advantage of it?
Yeah.
But a lot of time it's your fear keeping you out of doing something amazing. And even if it's just to book LaTonya to be a speaker at your next event, I mean, obviously she's amazing. So why wouldn't you want to reach out and connect with her? So find out, how can you collaborate with people? If you're like, oh my gosh, you know, LaTonya, it just resonates with me. Tonya resonates with me. Everyone who has the word Tonya in their name resonates with me.
I love it. I do.
Reach out and actually say hello, and then see what you could do together. Collaborate, figure out what it is that you can move forward, build a relationship. I mean, that's how I have opportunities that you can't even explain how they come about. You know, they're just so amazing. So thank you, LaTonya, again for being on the show.
My
And I'm
pleasure.
so glad that everything came out wonderful and positive for you. And it's amazing technology, especially in the medical field nowadays. You know, it's not as scary when you get those, even though that first moment of, what? No, I don't have the C word. You know, there is so many advances. So it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So thank you, everyone. Come back and see us next time. This was the Tonya Hofmann TV show. And also go check out Public Speakers with an S, association.com. You can find Dr. LaTonya on there also. Obviously, you can find me and all kinds of amazing people to connect to. Bye. See you soon.